Hello, this is a Pacesetter training video on how to absorb deductibles in Xactimate. So, absorbing deductibles is a situation where when you have exceeded a policy limit, if you have damages or paying out to the insured an amount of money that is exceeding a limit in a policy, that gives you the opportunity to absorb deductibles. And what that means is that we can move the deductible that is normally subtracted out of the claim. It's taken out of the insured's pocket. In other words, they have to pay the first, let's say $1,000. If that's their deductible, they have to pay the first $1,000 of damages, and then the policy kicks in and starts paying the remainder of the damages that is covered. Absorbing deductibles mean that doesn't occur. It's, in other words, putting the deductible back in the insured's pocket. It's not deducted from the claim, and what it is it's moved by Xactimate into that particular coverage that we're exceeding, and it's being absorbed away in the excess. In other words, if we have which we'll see here shortly, if we have a $500 limit and we're exceeding that limit by $2,000, so we say we have a $2,500 cost that we're paying for, but the policy only pays $500. So now we're $2,000 over the limit. Xactimate will move that $1,000 deductible over and apply it to that specific coverage that we're exceeding, and it will basically disappear or go away by being absorbed in that $2,000 excess. Another difference to that is if you are in excess of a policy, but the excess over the policy limit doesn't have enough money in it to absorb the entire deductible, it will absorb the amount of the deductible over the limit, and whatever's left over, any deductible left over, will be applied back into the claim and subtracted out of the claim. So let's take a look at a couple of those scenarios. I've already got one of these set up for tree debris. This is very common. Again, if you're not familiar with this particular setup, setting up coverages and trees, please take a look at our other training videos. We have some videos specifically for that, for dealing with trees and setting up coverages manually in Xactimate. So let's go over real quick and look under the Claim Info tab, Coverages and Loss. We have our coverages here, but you'll notice that I have a coverage set up automatically that I've created. I'm sorry, not automatically, manually. But I've set this coverage up, put a $500 limit in it. Typically, again, we're going to exceed these limits, very common, because the limit for tree debris for most policies is very low, $500. And then I have some line items that I've written for tree debris and removal. All of this stuff right here, and we're exceeding the limit. So here's the tree debris line item. So I have these other tree line items set to, this is cut and drop, removing trees from the structures. That's under the appropriate coverages. Those have plenty of money in those coverages to pay for that. But here is a line item we have set to haul that tree debris away. It's set to that coverage I've set up, tree debris, which only has a $500 limit. But 22 hours of this tree debris is $2,480. We only have a $500 limit. So we're about $1,948 over. So let's go take a look at this and see how this pans out. So if we go over real quick and check our deductible on this claim, it's $1,000. Let's take a look at the estimate. If we're exceeding the limit and we're going to view our estimate, Xactimate is going to give us a warning or a notification saying that we've exceeded a limit. Thank you, Xactimate. We know that. We're planning on that. Let's move on. All right, let's view the estimate. This is what the insured will see. So we have, under our coverage A dwelling, among other damages, this would be also including the dollar amount for removing any trees from the dwelling and getting them on the ground. This coverage A dwelling extensions, or if it's any of the other policies besides AmFam, this would be coverage B, other structures. This has included any damages to those structures or hauling tree or taking trees off of those structures and getting those on the ground. That would be for shops, detached garages, fencing, whatnot. Personal property summary. Here's our tree debris summary. If you'll notice, remember our line items for that were set to $2,480. That was the total. We have a $500 limit. That's what we want to pay the insured. We want to pay them the limit because we're well over the limit. But we want to absorb that deductible. The excess, the difference between the amount we say it's going to cost, $2,480, and $500, the limit, is $1,980.28. The deductible by Xactimate has been moved automatically from the dwelling coverage down into the tree debris coverage, and it's being absorbed into that excess. So Xactimate is saying, here's how much the total cost is to do that job. We're moving the deductible. We're subtracting that out of the limit. It's leaving still an excess over the limit of $980.28, and that still leaves enough money to pay the insured the entire policy limit, which we always want to pay the insured. So as you can see, we are paying the policy limit, $500, the most we can pay on that coverage to haul the tree debris off, and the deductible is being absorbed in that excess. And if you'll notice, it's not anywhere else. You don't see any deductible in any of the other coverages being subtracted out of the claim. So the insured gets to put this back in their pocket. They're not paying any deductible. That is called absorbing the deductibles. Very, very important. Very important to explain this to the insured. If you are absorbing their deductible or a portion of the deductible, let them know that. Believe me, they will be very happy to hear that. So let's look at another scenario where we're over limits, but we're not able to absorb the entire deductible. So let's go make some changes in the estimate here. We're going to go into our deductible, and let's kick this up and say the insured has a wind and hail deductible of $3,000. Okay? Now let's make it $3,500 or $4,000. So they're going to, typically that's going to be a 1% of the dwelling coverage. So let's make this accurate and change this to $400,000. Okay, good. We're going to use the same scenario, same numbers, same coverage limits. Now, let's go take a peek and see what's going on. We have a $4,000 deductible. This is what's going to change. So let's go take a look at the estimate again. Again, it's telling us we're exceeding the limit. Yes, we are exceeding the limit by that $1,980. But let's see how Xactimate deals with this. This is what we have to change manually. Look how it is taking some of the deductible. It's $4,000, and it's applying a portion of it here, and it's taking the rest of it and applying it to the tree debris, and it's zeroing out that amount. It's not paying anything to the insured on that tree debris disposal coverage. We do not want that. Anytime we're exceeding a limit, we always want to pay the insured that limit. So we need to manually change these numbers. So here's how you do this. In this case, we know that the amount over the limit is $1,980.28. I'm going to write this down. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract that number from the deductible and see what the balance is. So $4,000 is the entire deductible. The excess over the limit, the $500 limit on the tree debris, excuse me, and the line item itself that we're paying, the line item's $2,480, $1,980.28. Oops, my bad. Forgot to hit subtract minus 1980.28. So let's write this down. $2,019.72. So here's what we're going to do. we're going to only apply $1,980 of the deductible to this portion, and we're going to apply $2,019.72 to coverage A. So that's going to allow us to pay $500 to the insured. We can pay them more money, and we're going to subtract money out of a little bit more money out of the dwelling coverage. Yes, that kind of pans out about the same, but we want to show the insured that we are paying them the limit when we're exceeding this limit. So let's go set this up real quick, and then we'll take a look at it. Close this PDF. Let's go back. Go to our Coverages and Laws tab. Now, in this case, we have to manually change these numbers. And by default, on all the claims, you'll notice that applying the deductible in Xactimate is set to across all coverages. This is an automatic setting where Xactimate is trying to move deductibles around. But now we want to tell Xactimate, no, I don't want you to do it. I want to do it. I want to manually put certain numbers in. So we need to change this to coverage specific. Now we're going to go down and see that this $4,000 is being applied here again. Back up to the dwelling. We don't want that. We want to apply $2,000, $2,019.72 to the deductible on the dwelling, and then the remainder of that we want to apply to the tree debris. $1,980.28. Those two numbers account for the total deductible, but yet in this excess, we're going to eat up all the excess, as much of the deductible of that $4,000. We can only eat up $1,980.28 of that $4,000 deductible, because that's the amount over this limit that we're writing in the estimate. That's the most we can absorb of the deductible. There's going to be some of the deductible left over because it's such a high deductible. Remember, in the previous scenario, the deductible was only $1,000. So $1,900 was the limit, or the excess. That was plenty. That was enough to absorb the entire deductible. Now we have some of the deductible left over, $2,000, $19.72 left over. We're going to apply that back to the dwelling coverage. And that's what we've done here, is we put the exact excess of the deductible in here, and the rest of the deductible we have put in the dwelling. So let's go take a look at this again, see what this looks like on the estimate. So now we see that $2,019.72 manually that we put in, and forced Xactimate to apply that portion of the $4,000 deductible up here. And then if we go back down to the tree debris, we've told Xactimate, I want you to apply $1,980.28 of the $4,000 deductible here, and that allows us to pay the insured the $500 limit. That's the difference. Remember, this used to be, in the previous scenario, this was $0. We want to always show the insured on their estimates that we're paying them the limit. So I hope that makes sense on absorbing deductibles. This can happen, again, on any coverage that you exceed. Again, if your line items in the estimate are enough over the limit, the excess over the limit is enough to absorb the entire deductible, then Xactimate typically will move it down automatically, and it will absorb the entire deductible for you automatically, and the insured doesn't pay any of the deductible. If the excess over the limit is not enough to absorb the entire deductible, that's when you're going to need to do this scenario. Go set it to across all coverage, or from across all coverages to coverage specific, and then do some calculations to figure out how much do I need to put in the excess, which would be just the amount of the excess in the deductible. You use that number for that particular coverage that you're over the limit, and then the remainder of the deductible left you would put back typically on the coverage A dwelling. So I hope that makes sense. It sounds a little bit complicated. It's really not once you do this a couple of times. As always, if you have any questions, contact your account manager or your claim supervisor. If you run into this and need some more help, we'll be happy to help you. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you on the next video.